the Senate on the setting up of the Senate Oversight Fund to be used to provide oversight on county funds. Your Excellency, I support this, the setting up of the Senate Oversight Fund, and I would like to say that whoever may be uncomfortable with this is somebody who is not keen on the growth of counties. Honorable Speaker, I support this.
Thank you, Senator Beatrice. Senator Governor Lobahali Hibulaim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I stand to contribute to the address by the President to the two Parliament. And I would like to reflect on a few paragraphs among the other issues that has been already reflected on. One is the issue on paragraph 16, where the President has discussed and invited this House or Parliament as a whole, invited Parliament and in fact challenged them to create facilitative amendments in the standing orders where necessary. You know, provisions of the Constitution notwithstanding, and as Senate, I would like us to consider that point in order to make sure, rather than reflect what did not go right in the past, we should try and make right the opportunity that is provided by the President, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto. The other issue I would like to reflect on is paragraph 41, where the President discussed on the issue of, you know, managing the expenditure that is, you know, blowing, where he discussed in paragraph 39 public borrowing, public debt to the tune of 900 billion. And in paragraph 41, where the President discussed his direction to National Treasury and various ministries on the reduction by combing through the numbers and getting 300 billion in this year's budget in order to reduce our borrowing burden. I want to, maybe this is the opportune time to revisit the report on Presidential Task Force on parastatal reforms, which was carried out in 2013, but never implemented, which gives us the opportunity to really reduce on parastatals that are doing functions that are already devolved, or duplication of functions in various parastatals, where the President will be able to really streamline and make sure that there are no duplication of responsibilities within various parastatals as contained in that report of the Presidential Task Force on parastatal reforms in 2013. Maybe this is an opportune moment for that to take place. And lastly, I would like to you know, reflect on, not lastly, second but not the least, number 45, paragraph 45, where the President discussed the issue of NSSF, National Social Security Fund. The reality is exactly what the President discussed, and we have an opportunity because as a country, we should be able to have a retirement fund that is able to really support those that retire substantively. Contribution of 200 shillings is not going to support anyone retiring, and this requires bipartisan view in order for us to be able to propel the country forward. And as I reflect on the issue my brother Senator Mugatana discussed, previously in my responsibility as a governor, as well as the chair of Frontier Counties Development Council, that has brought together 10 counties and Council of Governors chair of ASAL committee. I would like to reflect on this, the issue that we are faced with right now of drought is an issue of grave concern to the country. NDMA has issued an alarm phase for 10 counties, namely Isiolo, Mandera, Samburu, Kajiado, Tharaka Nithi, Turkana, Wajir, Laikipia, Tana River, and Marsabit. And it went further to issue alert or stage of drought phase for counties of Embu, Garissa, Kitui, Makueni, Meru, Narok, Nyeri, Taita Taveta, Kwale, and Kilifi. And as we engaged non-state actors who used to come in to help government efforts in the past, because Kenya is a middle-income country, that help is not forthcoming anymore. As middle-income countries believe this country will be able to support itself by getting itself out of such emergencies. Drought emergency is an issue that now these counties that I've mentioned have lost more than half their livestock, and we are in that phase where threats to human life is clear and present danger in our counties. Counties that I've mentioned are ill-equipped, ill-resourced for purpose of dealing with disasters of this magnitude. And I welcome the President's speech, and further say, I hope and pray that whatever the President has promised is going to forthcome as an intervention in the short term, because we are already in alarm stage of drought, alarm phase of drought within 10 counties out of the 20 that is severely affected. But not only do short-term intervention to get to bail human life and livestock out of this catastrophe, but also, as my brother Senator Mungatana mentioned, put long-term preventive measures with the support of county governments in terms of dealing with this issue. This requires deliberate resource allocation and a Marshall Plan in order to deal with the issue of ending drought emergency in this area as I contribute. Thank you very much, and I support.
I will encourage as maybe we finish today's session, if you members can take maybe less time, like what the last two members have done, then we can have several of us contributing to the motion. So next is Senator Ososi Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also raise my voice on the President's address, which is guided by Article 132 of the Constitution, that the President will address Parliament, newly elected Parliament. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have talked many things about this. I'll seek not to repeat what they have said, but generally, the President's speech sounded very progressive, but there are rough edges to it, which I'll be addressing in my contribution. Mr. President alluded to the fact, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, from where I've come from, the National Assembly, this was a real challenge, that we would like to have cabinet secretaries coming to the House to address members' concerns, members' questions, statements, because the current arrangement is not very productive, and in the end, it is weakening Parliament as a key institution of running a government. But I want to disagree with the President, the route of doing it, because the President is proposing that we look at the standing orders and look at ways of having cabinet secretaries responding to issues on the floor of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ because that contradicts Article 97 of the Constitution on National Assembly composition and Article 98 of the composition of Senate, which provides that, for example, in case of senators, we have elected and the nominated senators, and we have the Speaker, who is an ex-officio member of the Senate. So for that to happen, Mr. Speaker, we would need a constitutional amendment. And in my speech, I will allude to the issue of constitutional amendment. So I think even as we think through it, we must be alive to the fact that the standing orders are derived from the Constitution. The standing orders cannot be superior to the Constitution. So if you want to tinker with the composition of the House, you have to amend Article 98 for Senate so that you tinker with the composition and allow the CSS to address Senate. Otherwise, we can allow them to come, but they will sit in the galleries and address us from the gallery, which does not look neat, Mr. Speaker. So this is an issue that we need to interrogate, and I'm happy that the other side, which was against any form of constitutional amendment, I remember even in their rallies they said not even a comma is going to be amended. They are now alive to the fact that we can have a constitutional moment where we can look at things which will make us progress. Issues like CDF, issues like oversight fund. Indeed, though the minority whip castigated BBI, I want to say that BBI had some very progressive provisions, which if we want to progress forward in terms of reorganizing CDF to constitutionalize it, or even having oversight fund, or even having CSS to appear on the floor and answer to the issues we raise, we have no choice but to look at our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I am happy with the present presentation that his government is going to be open and transparent. Mr. Speaker, for our government to be open and transparent, it must believe in the spirit of public participation. We have seen some decisions being made in this new government which are not guided by the spirit of public participation. The example is the GMO issue and many other issues which no, you will have your chance to say, to defend. So, we would like...
Just a minute. Just a minute. What
Yeah,
is
we only
out
have
of
one
order,
speaker on the
Senator Ngugeju Joseph?
I rise on a point of information to inform Senator Osotsi.
Then he must accept.
A point of order, fine.
He must
To
accept
inform
your
Mr. Speaker,
information.
Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be
Speaker.
informed. And
No,
this
yes,
is one way
again,
of...
Chief.
a point of order,
wasting my time.
fine. Fine.
Which order? Which point of honor? No, no,
Wait
no.
for the
please,
speaker
please,
to
wait,
give you.
wait, honorable members. Order. Because I get in the house that when members are contributing, you get your chance to collect whatever you feel is it's not okay.
That this side did not oppose BBI, but wanted BBI with
Okay, fine.
Mr. Speaker,
Proceed, Honorable
Mr.
Osos.
Speaker,
Proceed, Honorable Osos.
Mr. Speaker, just for guidance, you know, me and you are coming from the other house, where every member who rises on a point of order must state the point of order the standing order in which is rising on a point of order. Otherwise, we are going
Therefore, proceed, Honorable
to have
Source.
frivolous point of orders in this House and will not proceed. Mr. Speaker, the President has talked about open and transparent government. We want him to live to the word. And an open and transparent government means
What is not in order? Senator Redama.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on point of order 98, standing order. And Mr. Speaker, I think it is imperative that as a House of Union, and also we position ourselves as the upper house, that when a member rises to be able to speak, that member should be able to point at the exact point of order. This is as instructed on standing order number 98, which, Mr. Speaker, you'll allow me to read so that I can be able to prosecute my concern. 98.2, when a senator raises a point of order during the speech of another senator, the senator who was speaking shall therefore resume his or her own seat, and the senator raising the point of order shall do likewise when he or she has concluded his or her submission. But no other senator may, except the leave of the Speaker, speak on the point of order. The same point of order, Mr. Speaker, says that we must cite the point of order. What is out of order? Mr. Speaker, I listened to my colleague on the other side of the aisle, rising. And I just want to remind the House that this is another arm of government. A senator sitting on this side, arguing on a matter, and the motion that we're discussing today is in the Senate recording its thanks on the President's speech. The only way that we can grow with each other is if we allow divergence of opinions, because there's no way that I can share the same opinion as the other member. So when it comes to debating, some of these issues that we are raising on a point of order that it's out of order, it might just be your different opinion, and everyone is entitled to them. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to beseech the other side of the aisle that for us to be able to grow as a government, the other arm of government, let us allow other members to be able to air their views and to say what they thought about the President's speech. When I get an opportunity to speak, I will also be able to argue my points. So, Mr. Speaker, I would really request that you guide the House properly.
Okay, Senator Redama, thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker, I continue with my contribution. So, Mr. Speaker, the President alluded to the fact that he's going to have an open and transparent government. He also said that he's going to be a firm believer in democracy and rule of law. Mr. Speaker, us on this side, we want the President to live to his word. Because some of the actions that he has started doing do not live to this spirit, Mr. Speaker. When you talk about the issues of belief in democracy, you say it, but we have seen the President himself poaching members from this other side and engaging in illegal post-election agreements. When the law is very clear, you can only have one coalition agreement at a time. We had a very serious debate here yesterday on the same that touches on the issue of rule of law and non-believing in democracy. So that is a good thing, but we will hold the President accountable for his own speech that is tabled in this House, that he's going to be a firm believer in democracy. Mr. Speaker, the President also talked about the issues of NSSF as part of a saving strategy. Mr. Speaker, NSSF belongs to the workers, and NSSF cannot be part of a national government saving strategy. That is the money for our workers. We saw NSSF during Kanu government, how money was stolen in that institution. We cannot say we want to put more money in NSSF without restructuring NSSF, without removing corruption, without removing misplaced investments that happen in NSSF. So we are saying, Mr. President, it's good to increase the deduction to NSSF, but make sure that that NSSF is restructured so that Kenyans have confidence to put their money in it. Mr. Speaker, the President also talked about Hustlers Fund. I want to join my colleague and my friend, Senator Khalwale, that unless we have a proper legislation in place, proper structures in place, this will be another avenue for corruption. So this House, I beseech you, let us not appropriate any money, the Parliament, National Assembly, and even this Senate, to this fund without a proper legislation and structures in place. Because we are no longer in the campaign environment. We are now working for Kenyans. And therefore, we must ensure that there is value for money and the proper accountability of the funds of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I'm so disappointed with this speech because in his speech, he never talked about corruption. And this has been the tendency of the other side. In their rallies, in their meetings, they don't talk about corruption because they are beneficiaries of corruption. We expected the president to tell us one way of ensuring that this country has money is to fight corruption. Because we are told this country is losing 2 billion shillings a day. In a year, it's about 700 billion shillings a year. This is enough money to inject into the economy and improve this economy. So we are wondering how the president is going to implement all these promises he's giving us without fighting corruption, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni Khalwale, what is
Because
out of order?
fight against corruption is key
And also
is a cancer in this country,
the
Mr. Speaker.
standing order that you are standing on.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member.
Which is standing order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I look at standing order number 98. And number 98, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, does not ask any senator to state any standing order, but to explain. So, Mr. Speaker, be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, this is important. We are all united here to fight corruption for a better Kenya. So when a member of this Senate alleges that we are corrupt, and he knows that the 2 billion shillings he's saying that was getting lost every day was at the office of the president of the handshake government, the same handshake government, Mr. Speaker, the same handshake government that stole the money for Corona, and the money was received by relatives and friends of one of the partners of handshake, Mr. Speaker, you must find that under 98, he's grossly out of order.
Olekina, let him finish his point of order, then you can execute yours. Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker.
This is a house of record. And it's a bit ludicrous for a seasoned politician and a legislator to start here and mislead this house. Standing Order 98.1 is very explicit, and it says clearly that 98.1, any senator may raise on a point of order at any time during the speech of another senator, stating that the senator raises a point of order and the senator shall be required to indicate the standing order upon which the point of order is based. So, Mr. Speaker, when the majority whip mislead this house that there is no such standing order, and we leave that on record, Mr. Speaker, we'll be setting a very bad precedent. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request the majority whip, sorry, I keep calling you minority, majority whip, to withdraw his statement and apologize. Because these standing orders are here to guide us. They are not just here for the sake of it. It is pure English. And this is a man who speaks English better than people in Butere or Naro. So please, just read it clearly and then correct it. Withdraw. 98-1.
Senator Khalwale, can you maybe
Speaker.
I confirm that what Senator Redama has just said is true
Mr.
and
Speaker.
correct. 98-1.
Mr. Speaker, I am lucky that I was one of the people who crafted these standing orders. And Mr. Speaker, the intention of standing order number 98-1 does not require that when you stand, you must say standing order number 105. Wait, why don't you listen? You have already acknowledged that I know how to speak English. It says, at the pleasure of this plenary, you can be challenged when you are looking to be irrelevant. But if a member of parliament rises on a point of order and clearly the issue is articulating, is referring to a point of order which is somewhere, you cannot expect every member to be remembering every point of order when they stand up, however brilliant you are. But you must remain within the standing orders.
Senator Khalwale, with due respect, you know that is why we have the rules of the House.
Yes.
Every member is supposed to acquaint himself or herself with the rules of the House so that you can be under.
Yes.
So you cannot dismiss a standing order which has been okayed by this House. You know, these standing orders are products of this House.
True, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
And
I
therefore,
stand guided,
yes.
but my reading of this standing order so that the country understands me and my colleagues here.
Maybe the member who does not know the standing order can consult.
Yes.
The veterans
Mr.
and
Speaker,
know which standing order you'll issue.
Yes.
Because
Mr.
that
Speaker,
way we shall
I
be
stand
orderly
guided.
in the House, will be orderly, and will be transacting business.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided, but my reading of this standing order is that this is a warning to any member that do not stand on a frivolous point of order. But it does not, in this one, say at what point thou shalt be expected to state. That's my departure. And because my brother went to the US where black people speak very broken English, probably this is why he's not seeing.
Honestly, let us use parliamentary language, you know, kindly. What is out of order, Senator Veronica? Just a minute. Senator Veronica, go ahead.
I raise point of order. Order.
Senator Gloria, you're out of order, Senator Gloria. Members are listening on a point of orders. If you have one, I'll give you an opportunity as well. Okay,
Mr. Speaker,
Senator
sir,
Veronica.
if I have the floor, I rise under Standing Order 105 to respond to Senator Otsotsi in respect of his reference to the loss of 2 billion shillings per day. Mr. Speaker, Standing Order number 105 indicates that a senator shall be responsible for the accuracy of any fact that the senator alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to bring it to your attention that the statement that has been thrown to the floor of this House has no relevance absolutely to the current speech of the President and must be withdrawn. And I want to invite you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that under Standing Order 105(2), if a senator has sufficient reason to convince the Speaker that the senator is unable to substantiate the allegations instantly, the Speaker shall require that such senator substantiates the allegations not later than the next sitting day, failure to which the senator shall be deemed to be disorderly within the meaning of Standing Order 121 unless the senator withdraws the allegations and gives a suitable apology if the Speaker so requires. I want to invite you, Mr. Speaker, to request the Honorable Senator to withdraw that statement as unbecoming, not relevant, not part of the speech that is before the House, and to give a suitable apology under that standing order.
Senator Olsosi, Senator Veronica has actually, I want to commend you, Senator Veronica, for really very accurate understanding order that you raise upon, because many colleagues here are not able to quote the standing orders under which they are raising. So, Honorable Senator Otsotsi, there is the statement you made about the 2 billion, which let me get the fact right, Senator Veronica. Who is supposed to substantiate this matter? Because I'm told assistance that is Senator Boni Khalwale, who talked about the 2 billion. Yes. So the answer is capturing Senator Boni Khalwale, not the Senator Otsotsi.
Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, sir, just to remind you, and you can confirm, that statement has been given by Senator Otsotsi. This is a house of integrity. He's the first one to refer to it. Mr. Speaker, sir, do I have your
If then we are not sure, we'll consult the answer.
No, Mr. Speaker,
In a
sir,
few minutes.
I will just remind you, he is the one who has given that statement on the floor of the House. That's a heavy statement, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is not an issue that can be tossed around. He has even referred to some people as thieves. It is not a statement that should be taken lightly. He's not even denying.
Senator
Mr.
Otsotsi,
Speaker, sir,
before we consult the answer, confirm or deny
yes,
that you are not
Mr.
the one
Speaker,
who
sir,
made the
can he
allegations.
now withdraw?
No, Senator Otsotsi, can you, before we consult the answer, and you know, because I'll ask the clerks to Senator Otsotsi. Senator Otsotsi, can you kindly confirm or deny that you did not make such allegations? And then the consequences, you know, will follow you. No, I'm Senator Otsotsi. You either confirm or deny that you did not make such allegations before we consult the answer.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, if the answer is produced, I can remember what I said. I said we have been told. We have been told. And then my good friend Khalwale came in and gave specific information. So I think I have nothing to substantiate. I have nothing to substantiate.
You know, Senator Otsotsi, you know the consequences.
Yeah. And then, Mr. Speaker, which one? Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to draw your attention to Standing Order number 105-2 that states, if a senator has sufficient reason to convince the Speaker that the senator is unable to substantiate the allegations instantly, the Speaker shall require that such senator substantiates the allegation not later than the next sitting day, failure to which the senator shall be deemed to be disorderly, within the meaning of Standing Order number 121, unless the senator withdraws the allegations and gives a suitable apology, if the Speaker requires so. So, Mr. Speaker, I am requiring that we produce the Hansard.
So I want
My
to make
Hansard and
a very
Honorable Khalwale's Hansard.
no. I want to make a very quick ruling that I will consult the answer, and tomorrow afternoon we will be able to give direction on what should happen. Yes. Let's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, I think this is just a strategy to
That
eat
matter is
into my
already
time.
ruled. I've already ruled on that matter.
But nevertheless, I will continue.
Who was on the floor?
I was on the floor.
Yeah, finish. Kindly finish up. Very
Mr.
fast.
Speaker, Speaker, I require your protection. I require your protection.
On the matter of consulting the answer, I think I've made the right ruling.
Yeah. Let me proceed then.
But what?
Mr. Speaker.
Senator made what I made the ruling that you should just press the intervention key and please keep quiet, please. Please. Yes. No. You press and wait for your time for intervention.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I need your protection from members on this other side.
I told you to proceed, Senator Sosi. What is the problem?
From your shouting. Mr. Speaker, just to wind up my contribution, we had a lot of expectation when we went to listen to the president. But some of us left there very disappointed, because one of the expectations I had as a senator representing the people of Vihiga was for the president to tell the House a lot more about the bottom-up economic model that they were telling us during the campaign. How are we going to legislate about it? How are we going to put finances in it? The president did not tell us anything about it.
Senator Medu Nyandarwa, what is out of order again?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Standing order number? Which number?
We are trying to do what we are supposed to do. And I want to quote Standing Order 122 E, that a senator shall be out of order if he deliberately gives false information to the Senate. Senator Godfrey Osotsi, a respectable senator from Vihiga, has given false information because he says that in the address of the president, he has not. I'm not speaking about what you have spoken. The speaker ruled on the 2 billion. Speaker Godfrey Osotsi, in his submission, alleges that the president never mentioned anything about corruption. And if you look at the 19 of the address of the president,
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
I'm on a point of order, Speaker.
It's a frivolous point of order.
If you look at the address of the president, number 19, it is in this period that I will be seeking additional resources to support the bottom-up scaling of justice and empower the judiciary to acquire capacity and develop infrastructure needed to more efficiently adjudicate and expeditiously conclude corruption cases. So, in my opinion,
give him time
Speaker,
to execute his stand.
the senator for Vihiga is completely out of order to mislead the House that the president in his address did not address on issues on corruption. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you. So, Senator Sosi, kindly conclude. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to wind up, my last point is that the president, in his speech, recommended that, that the ministries adjust their budget by 300 billion shillings to support the saving program. Mr. Speaker, we would like to know more about this, and I'm sure maybe the budget will come to Parliament. We want to know, where is he going to get this money? Is he going to cut people's salary, allowances? And then again, it's contradictory, Mr. Speaker, because as the president is talking about reducing the expenditure in government, he has gazetted additional state departments. He has appointed people called the cabinet level appointments, the so-called advisors, which is going to eat more money from the exchequer. So, Mr. Speaker, I find that to be contradictory, and I'm saying that the president's speech was contradictory. It fell short of the expectation of Kenyans, and it was not presidential.
Your time is out.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
I want to hear this point of order from Senator Korir Chepkoech Joyce. Okay, we have the intervention. Chelakei Samson. Senator Chelagei.
Okay.
Kiplotich.
Mr. Speaker, there is an issue that was raised on the floor of the House. And I think when you look at Standing Order 121 and 122, I know this matter will come up ruling tomorrow in the afternoon. It is not wise and fair for members to, in terms even of point of relevance under the Standing Order, Mr. Speaker, to raise things that are outside the purview of presidential address. Because, for example, if you raise about bottom-up, Mr. Speaker, yes, in the presidential speech, he has talked about the Hustlers Fund. So, Mr. Speaker, these senators who are speaking to this address of the president must acquaint themselves to Standing Order 121 and 122. Mr. Speaker, and I want to call upon you, don't be merciful. The only mercy we have is of Jesus Christ. Any other mercy is imported. So if somebody makes unsubstantiated allegation in the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, deal with them firmly and ruthlessly. We are not in somewhere in Vihiga. In fact, the Senator also should be grateful that
Senator
one of his constituents is the
Chelagei.
Prime Cabinet Secretary in Kenya Kwanza government. He should be grateful instead of fighting the government. How can you bite the hand that feeds you? You can't. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chelagei, you know I've been here for the last now 3.5 hours, going to 4 hours. And this house can really agree with me that I've done so well. This is my first time to sit in this chair. And therefore also I want to remind you that Honorable Senator Sosi's life is already hanged, because there is a ruling expecting tomorrow in this floor. We are consulting the answer. So my rulings are very objective, and I think I've no, of course I'm merciful, that is my inborn. I have some kind of mercy. But nobody will abuse it. I want to assure you, nobody will abuse that trait. Therefore, next is Senator Tobiko.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr.
And I
Speaker.
said, members, if possible, you can save a few minutes so that other colleagues can also be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion on the presidential speech to both houses of parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I heard the Honorable Osotsi, let me just begin from there, saying that the president did not expound on the bottom-up economy that the hustler movement have been talking about to Mwananchi. And I thought it's good to just tell the Honorable Osotsi the good senator of Vihiga, who also served with me at the National Assembly, that actually the president's speech was full of the bottom-up tenets that we had told, that we sold to all Kenyans, and that Kenyans bought and elected Dr. William Samoei Ruto as the President of the Republic of Kenya. And I'm going to mention a few, so that I don't go into the entire speech. I'm going to mention a few of what the Hustler movement or the Hustler leadership promised Kenyans. And some of the low-hanging fruits that have already been, implemented and have already benefited Kenyans. There is the cheap fertilizer that the president had talked about through and through. And the first thing he did when he got into office was to lower the pricing of fertilizer by around 2,000. I think by the time we were campaigning, it was around 6,500, I think. And now, ASAC is going at around 3,500. So that is one of the many things that compose of the bottom-up economy. Because we want productivity, and I think the president had also elaborated a lot on emphasizing productivity, agricultural productivity, both farmers, livestock, and fishing in this country instead of subsidies on foodstuffs. And I think we are in the right direction, Mr. Speaker, that the president started actually immediately he got in, and Kenyans right now, hopefully when we get into the rain season, productivity is going to improve in this country in all sectors, whether it is in the fishing communities, whether it is in the farming communities or the pastoralists, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the president had also mentioned a lot and emphasized on affordable housing, which is also quite elaborated in the presidential speech, Mr. Speaker, that all Kenyans deserve, and according to the Constitution, have the right to affordable living, decent housing. And that is why the president appealed to both houses that we should embrace and enhance the government policy on affordable housing so that every Kenyan can afford a house, can live in good conditions, can be in homes that have running water and electricity. In this speech, Mr. Speaker, that one is also very much elaborated. Mr. Speaker, in the presidential speech, Mr. Speaker, there was the issue of the Hustler Fund. It is really one of the main things of the bottom-up economy that we were talking about during the campaigns. And the president confirmed and affirmed that he will allocate 50 billion every year for the Hustler Fund in order to help Mama Mboga, in order to help the boda guys, in order to enhance, the small enterprises, Mr. Speaker. I think the president, everything that he said in his speech was underscoring the bottom-up economy. He expounded what the Kenya Kwanza plan or our manifesto had on affordable credit. Actually, the president in his speech alluded to the fact that a day before, he had spoken to the guys of, to the operators of Fuliza and M-Shwari, and they had indicated, and they had given word to the president that they are going to lower their credit cost by 40%. I think we are on the right track. I think the president really has preached until it has become like a Bible about the bottom-up economy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the president began by appreciating Kenyans and the members who got elected and the steps we have made as a country, particularly in having women in leadership. The constituency holders have increased to around 29 from what was there initially around 23. The retention in both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly, is much better than it was before. But Mr. Speaker, I had something to say about the women in elective positions. Mr. Speaker, political parties in this country still have a long way to go. And I am sure all the women who got elected, be it governors, be it constituency holders, be it women reps, have a story to tell of the hurdles that political parties are still putting for women across this country. And there will be a better representation. There will be a better percentage of women. Actually, 1/3 can be achieved because Kenyans are ready to elect women now. But the mindset of political parties is yet to change, Mr. Speaker, because women in this country are still relegated to nomination slots, Mr. Speaker, whereas women have gotten into competitive politics, and Kenyans have proved that they trust women leadership even much more if given a fair chance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, going forward in our country, we would want to see, a fair playing ground in political parties, so that we have elected women senators, like the Honorable Mudhama I can see coming in, and the others, Mr. Speaker, who have come through the elective position. Mr. Speaker, I think as a country, and having the president who we know was supported possibly by more than 50% of the women electorate of this country, I am sure he's going to enhance that space. I am sure he's going to, help Kenyan women to achieve the 1/3 representation in both houses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the president had talked about effective oversight in both houses, and even proposed that there should be an oversight fund, possibly in the, to help the Senate undertake its duty of effective oversight over the counties, Mr. Speaker. I think this should be a very welcomed gesture by this, for this House, and even the National Assembly, on the issue of the Constituency Development Fund, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because I represented a constituency, Kajiado East constituency, for 2 terms in the National Assembly, and I know the importance of the Constituency Development Fund at the constituency level. Mr. Speaker, I can for sure vouch for the members of the National Assembly that the Constituency Development Fund should be retained. There must be a way that even the judiciary should understand, because laws are meant to help human beings and not to curtail, the benefits for our communities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the children depend on the bursaries in CDF. Mr. Speaker, you know, because you also represented the constituencies, that we used CDF to build a lot of schools, Mr. Speaker, and to build police stations and do roads, Mr. Speaker, and this fund should not be lost, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because I can see that maybe possibly I don't know whether I have taken more than my time allocated, but I just wanted to convince the Honorable Osotsi and the others who are casting aspersions and doubts on the presidential speech that actually he has, I think he has even internalized, and most of us here, particularly from the Kenya Kwanza team, have internalized the bottom-up tenets, and they are well expounded in the presidential speech, and we would urge you to support it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
You have just used the time that was allocated for you precisely. Senator Oloba Magoma Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, finally. I want to just mention a few things about the President's speech, particularly about the 50 billion Hustlers Fund. One of the observations that I think that has been made in this House previously on the funds that have been there is that they're not really sustainable. Uwezo Fund that was supposed to be a revolving fund was actually misused and politicized. And so this is actually very refreshing to know that we have a government that is willing to cure the problems of the existing funds. And I actually want to take this opportunity to urge that when that piece of legislation, because it will come to the floor of the House, when it comes to the floor of the House, that we push, that we ensure that we are curing the problems that the likes of Uwezo Fund and Youth Fund and the Women Fund have. You will note that as a nominated senator who was nominated under the gender top-up, but actually I'm a youth advocate and has been pushing for the empowerment of youth. One of the things that has been a big problem with empowerment of the youth in terms of funds is that there is no sustainability of the same. And speaking to the President, His Excellency William Ruto, we discussed on issues on how this fund is going to be dispatched. And I'm glad that in his speech, he actually articulated that one of the things that they are going to use or to push is that we will use technology to push for this fund in terms of management of the fund, in terms of distribution of the fund. And I just want to say, and I hope that when the piece of legislation comes to the House, that I will be supported, that it is time that Uwezo Fund and Youth Fund and Women Fund and any other existing fund that has not actually been impactful, I hope that we will be able to collapse it and replace it with the Hustlers Fund, with the intention that any beneficiary of that fund would at least at the bare minimum undergo a training, a basic business training, such that, because if you read from the speech, it says on 28 that my administration will allocate 50 billion every year to the Hustlers Fund from the micro, small, and medium enterprises so that they can access affordable credit to start and to expand their businesses. Mr. Speaker, you'll find that for Uwezo Fund, we were actually being encouraged to go as groups. And once they go as a group, they get whatever money is there, they distribute the money, but there was no business that was being started. And at one point, politicians, some of them in this House, started using it as a sort of token to give to the electorate. But what they did not understand was that at the end of the day, when that fund ceases to be a revolving fund, then the same electorate will blame you for, impoverishing their lives. So for the Hustlers Fund, I think this is a good direction that we are taking. And I hope that my fellow senators will assist when the bill comes to the House, that we push that one of the legal frameworks that we'll place is that we have PPPs, that is the partnerships with the CBOs and the NGOs that are already offering free business skills training, such that it is a prerequisite before you receive that fund that you undergo a business skills training, a short course of 1 month, and that they receive. Another thing I want to touch on, and it's probably the last one, is on the digital technologies. In his speech, our president actually stated that digital technologies have become a critical player in economic growth. And it is time that we capitalize on them. I speak from a point of information. I actually, before I was a senator, worked as a manager of the data center of Facebook in Denmark. And one thing that I really hope we will practice political obscurity when that bill comes to this floor is that when we have to hold these big organizations such as Facebook and Google and Amazon accountable in terms of them remitting taxes to this country, that we will be able to vote as a house in the interest of the electorate and our people, because it is known that these organizations are currently not operating locally. They are based somewhere in a cloud abroad. That technically has exported the jobs that we have for the youth, have been exported to these other places where they are operating. So I was very happy to hear that the digital economy is going to be, let's say, prioritized, because it is time that this house brings legislation that will hold these companies accountable, that will localize our data and where we store it, and also that we ensure our workers who at the moment, if you are aware, for instance, for Facebook, they are operating as a proxy in this company. And one of the things that they have done is that they have outsourced their employees. So therefore, you cannot sue Facebook when they are actually mistreating their employees. The employees do not have benefits in terms of housing, in terms of medical cover. They do not have benefits because they are operating as contractors. And so for me, I would say that it is a very good time to serve in the Senate, because I am passionate about these things, and I really hope that when those bills come to the House, I already have tabled a bill in terms of localizing our data so that we can hold these companies accountable. I hope that my fellow senators will support the president into turning the digital economy into an economy that is actually impactful to this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. As you can see, this is just by the way. I do not know which rule to follow, but it is very unfair for senators to walk in at 6 o'clock and shine so that they can be recorded at the Hansard, and then walk